What's up, everybody? Andrew Clear here from the F1 podcast, bringing you season 3, episode 31 of the F1 podcast. I am here with Erica Hollingsworth. Erica, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be back after a couple chaotic months and to talk all things F1.
You are back. Kind of like, Chris Berman. Back. Great to have you on. We missed you. The fans missed you.
Oh, missed you too.
Just wanted to let everybody know, though, first and foremost, we have dropped season 3, episode 30, where you can get your podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube today. So please listen to this before this episode, because we're going to do like a little bit of a recap again of the race, get Erica's point of view on it, but we also want to talk about the complete BS that was that Richie and I alluded to in the season 3, episode 30 of kind of like how the weekend went down. But we had some fans correspondence. We had some fans on boots on the ground for this race.
We had some spicy comments.
Yeah, loved it. So, Erica, first and foremost, what were your overall thoughts on the race?
Las Vegas?
Vegas? What the hell are we doing in Vegas?
Just the race. I thought the race itself was surprisingly entertaining. I haven't been the biggest fan of street circuits as a whole for the last while. As the cars have got bigger, I found that the races got less and less entertaining because there wasn't as much passing. But this was actually a wide enough track where we could still get a lot of action going on. There was drama between teammates passing each other. There was a lot of risks being taken by the drivers in order to try to get ahead from others, which made it fantastic to watch.
I want to argue it's probably one of the best races of the year, maybe pushing for best race of the year, just based on they had like 99 overtakes, different strategies that saw, a couple safety cars too, but strategies that saw Ocon go up 12 spots from P16 to P4, and then my boy Lance Stroll, who I've criticized all year round, goes from P19 to P5. Just, it had a lot of everything in the race, as you mentioned. It was, because it was a street track in a sense, but it was wide enough, especially on the strip. I was surprised how wide the strip was for overtaking.
Yeah, honestly, like I've not been to Vegas before, so it's not like I really have a frame of reference for how wide that street usually is. I do know though that it's several lanes wide going each direction, so they had a lot of room to work with. I just anticipated that with the grandstands being there in a few different places kind of going along, or like trying to make sure that it was still safe for people walking outside of the track, that it was going to be a little bit narrower to accommodate all the people. But yeah, it allowed for some really great stuff to go down when people were kind of going along the street there.
Yeah, and what I felt was quite interesting too was when the ambient temperature was the same as the track temperature. So it was pretty much a skating rink out in turn 1 to begin the race, which then kind of led to a safety car in that sense. And then it, kind of snowballed from there in terms of how it went. But again, Max wins for I want to say 18th time this year.
Oh my God. But at the same time, he earned it this time.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
He had to work for it. It wasn't just a casual drive as it has been the last few races. And most of the season, arguably.
No, it's true. And especially when, start up P2, goes up to P1, and then drops back down to like kind of P7 and had to really fight through the field, as mentioned, and was able to kind of pass him. It struggles to pass, but, the Rebel was so fast in the straight this weekend. I was surprised Checo went with a fatter wing for in terms of downforce. That was his kind of demise. He had the position to get up to P1, but aerodynamically, he was just a sitting duck in the straight.
Truly. Yeah, there was nothing he could do, especially when Max was closing in on him and had DRS coming into some of that as well. Like, you just know it's a matter of time until you're overtaken with it. It's a shame because I'm sure there was some logic and strategy to it that they thought would pan out, but didn't.
And I think Ferrari kind of getting a little bit of payback on Mercedes this weekend too, which was interesting to see. I kind of think they forgot about George Russell's 5-second penalty towards the end because Toto was pushing for P4, and then he got to P4, but ended up finishing like P8, I think, or P7 with that 5-second penalty. So I think they may have kind of forgotten it in all the heat of the battle.
I was gonna say, because honestly, like I just rewatched the race in full before we did this just to make sure I was abreast of everything going on. And it was exactly that. It was like there was no conversation about radio or strategy or anything with the engineer. Like usually when someone has a penalty, we hear a little bit of debate over how people want to manage it, like how they want to serve that penalty in order to make sure that they can maximize position on the track. And like there was still enough race left that if he had maybe come in to pit for some softs or something and serve that penalty, maybe he could have made up another position or two as opposed to finishing P8, because it is a shame. Like he had a really great race.
Yeah.
He was really fighting to stay at the front with Max for quite a while there, which is why he got the penalty. And I feel like if you're George, it's been a frustrating season. I'm sure there was a lot to talk about in the debrief in the Mercedes garage. I just would have liked to have, not that he's like, I mean, if we're talking about reality TV here, George Russell's been playing the villain all season long. Let's be real here. He's giving Christine Quinn energy from Selling Sunset. He is the drama for a lot of what's going on. But I do still think he's a talented driver, and I would have liked to have seen maybe better management of that so that he could have maybe become P6 or something like that had it been served differently.
Yeah, and I almost kind of think it's kind of it's pretty much been the opposite of last season, right? He was the golden boy for Mercedes in the last season, with Lewis kind of doing all those setup changes, but Lewis has shown his mettle this year and really been able to showcase why he's a 7-time world champion, finishing ahead of George in a majority of the races too. And but trouble in paradise for him this weekend in terms of how a crash with Oscar kind of took him out of running for some good points. And it was a tough weekend too for McLaren, right? That kind of like freak accident by Lando, thankfully he's okay. I think it was like lap 2 or 3. I don't know, it was
somewhere toward the beginning.
Yeah, it was.
But that corner in general caused a lot of problems for people this weekend. Like I think, because was that turn 12, and that was also where I think that's where we had the little debacle with Max and George.
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, we all kind of knew looking at this, you have near 90-degree turns and several points on this track coming in out of high speed. There was going to be some instances where people get backed up, the cars get a little clogged, especially at the beginning, but that was freaky, truly. Like, to see Lando spin out and go into the barrier like that, it was intense.
And then to see him hear that he went to medical center afterwards to make sure that he was okay. You don't really see that. You do hear that, but that's kind of, Zach Brown was confusing because Zach Brown said, oh, he's fine. And then it went to like the medical tent, but still he's fine. And then he went further for further testing. I was like, okay, dude is not fine. If that's the case, Zach, like clearly stop sugarcoating it here.
It's like, clearly we have different definitions of the word fine if this is how it's being handled right now. Yeah. And I mean, granted, we can joke about it now because he is okay and is racing this weekend in Abu Dhabi.
He is fine.
He's my definition of fine, which means that you are healthy and can go out into the world and interact with it the way you normally would had you not crashed into a barrier at very high speeds.
Oh, so my definition of fine is like he's good looking, but different story, I guess.
Well, I mean, he needs to keep shaving that thing off his face that he keeps trying to regrow, and then he will be back in my good
graces. Give him a break,
ever.
Erica. He's trying to become manly, or appearance-wise.
Okay, I will say I did forget how young he is. Because he's like 23, but just because he's been racing for so long, I thought he was older because he's been around for several seasons.
Truthfully, that's the amount of hair that he had on his face too, like 23 individual strands.
It explains why he can't do much more than the chin thing for sure. The guy is barely out of a car seat, but it's so bad. But some of the jokes that came out of it were so entertaining. Like, if anyone has followed F1 Troll and stuff about how, like, some of the headlines that maybe a gossip columnist would put together, like Lando Norris unveils how much money is left in his bank account after using the U.S. medical system, and like,
yeah, probably sucked him dry for like a solid couple $100K for sure.
Well, and like showing like stressed photos of Zach Brown trying to calculate the cost cap with the trip to the hospital. Like,
So
It's
good.
truly so entertaining, especially because so many F1 fans come from Europe where they're like, what do you mean you pay for healthcare? So it's definitely been a good time to be alive, and we've had some very entertaining stuff come out of the weekend.
No, truly fair.
I will
So,
say.
speaking of the weekend,
Mhm.
a lot happened at the beginning of the week that really kind of put a sour note. And I said this, I think John and I actually we alluded to this in the previous episode, is that thank God the race is of that quality on Sunday. Otherwise, this would have been just a complete and utter failure
Yeah.
for F1, for maybe not Las Vegas from an economy standpoint, but from an overall view standpoint, brand value could have hurt a little bit for sure.
It was an exciting spectacle. So I was not there for the race or even there around that time, but a lot of coworkers were, because a big conference that we go to for work every year was happening in the days leading up to it.
Okay.
So like one guy was at, I don't know if it was Omnia or which of the big nightclubs, and there's just a Red Bull hanging from the ceiling in the middle of the club, and I was like, "What? This is this is insane. This is what life is."
That was their
And
introduction.
like just he's like at a club and there's just a full-on F1 car like slowly coming down from the ceiling, and he's like, "Oh, what?" But so like A plus for the spectacle all around. The spectacle was poorly supported and rolled out in a lot of ways. Like I think we heard a lot of the drama around fans being asked to leave before the end of either FP1 or FP2. There were a lot of residents who were complaining about the noise and everything that was coming off of it, and how it was like this was at nighttime. This was not just a night race in the sense that it's like dark outside, because it's North America and we're approaching winter. Like you could have done this race at like 10 p.m. and it would have been as dark, but it was Vegas, and so they did it in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Plus just drama with the FIA as per usual.
Well, and as mentioned earlier, we had one of our fans, Dana. She was on boots on the ground at the Las Vegas GP, spent good quality money on, I'm assuming like 3,000 plus on tickets for the entire weekend, plus room and board. And she made a great post on Instagram. How about, she kind of described as like the biggest roller coaster ride versus, the happiness versus the devastation. So before FP1 and FP2 got kind of like red flagged and canceled entirely, they were only experienced 9 of 120 minutes of track time that day.
Wow.
And what she understood based on the cancellation is that single day ticket holders received a $200 voucher for merch, while the 3 to 4 day pass holders were kind of SOL for the missed time track, and they paid and ended up having to watch how to watch the like kind of like the sessions from the hotel room, for missing track. And I think, to me, that's that's a bad look, because I understand
Yeah.
wanting to give single day ticket holders value for their money, and missing out the session, but through like a $200 voucher, it's just fine for merchandise. I get that. But for those who paid the 3K for the weekend and wanted the full weekend experience, there's need to be some compensation for missing out on one of those 2 days, especially like when people are paying $3,000+ US for that experience. That there needs to be some form of compensation that goes with that time.
I just would be, yeah, I'd be so livid to know that those people got some kind of kickback and I didn't. Like, there's a reason you buy a pass for the full weekend, and it's to see as much action as possible in that point of time and to not have that opportunity and not be compensated in any way when someone who only bought a ticket for one day did. I'd be like, well, why don't I get something? Also, if you give me the voucher now, I can probably use it on race day when I come back, and then you're not shelling out this money down the road. Like it's less, I don't know. It makes little to no sense to me.
And she made a good point too, where she said, like, I asked her like what her thoughts were, kind of like what she most surprised about, and overall thoughts. She said the production value, like just from like how they did up the strip, and you could even see it on TV, like just them driving down the strip and all the glitz and the glamour, the light
Mhm.
shows, just I don't know, it was picture perfect in terms of what they wanted as a viewpoint. But from behind the scenes, she sent us pictures too, like there were grandstands falling apart. People were fearful of their safety
Oh
in the
my God.
grandstand sections because chairs were falling down. There were sections kind of like breaking apart, and they had to reroute people along the track walkways to ensure their safety.
I can't imagine. And I would also be really upset because typically a grandstand ticket is much more expensive than like a GA ticket. So you're expecting like a certain level of like vantage, whatever. It's more selective than just like hoping you can find a spot along the track somewhere. To not get what you like paid for in that regard as well. Like, oh, I'd be furious. I'd be so upset. And like, especially when your safety is called into question, like that's the last thing you want. Like you're already kind of on edge because you're at such an intense event to begin with. Like, that's the last thing you need.
Well, and it's paramount to have safety for the fans at an event that you can control. You
Mm-hmm.
can control the structural integrity of the grandstand because you put them up. And
Yeah.
to have the fact that people are in the back of their mind thinking during the race that, oh, my seat might fall out, or who knows if I'm gonna fall through, right? You know, I mean that of course that is like those are, some extreme cases. But when you see some of the photos, you can see why people may think that during the race. And, people's safety should be paramount. It should be the first thing. It should be a priority, as
Priority number one.
priority number one. Right. And the fact that it was more or less, as Max put it, 99% show, 1% the race. That is a terrible from the F1 and FIA to just not even not really consider. You think that safety should be priority number one, or you'd hope that it would be part of that.
You would, absolutely. And I didn't pay too much attention to, like, obviously, we all knew some of the complaints and some of the things that were coming out ahead of time. But I'm kind of curious to know, was the reason that this was happening that they didn't give themselves enough time to prepare everything and they were trying to rush? Because honestly, like, of all the things to rush, dial back your presentation and ceremony like 10% with the stage to make it a little less grandiose and invest that in the safety of the people who are attending. Like, it's Vegas. Whether or not your stage and the kickoff and all this stuff is insane or not, it's going to be a party. There's no denying that. It's what the city is built on. Like, I don't know, maybe instead of adding some extra lights and fireworks and confetti to the stage, just hire 2 more showgirls to come out and do something. I don't know. But like,
Or even like put more action, like put like the Sphere was an incredible show. Like I thought the Sphere this weekend was so unique in the sense that whenever there was a safety car, it would have like it would turn yellow flag and showcase like safety car been dispatched. And that production value, awesome. But yeah, I agree. Tone it back a little bit because as you mentioned, it's gonna be an absolute like just time. Like people are
yeah,
gonna go nuts while they're there, regardless, because it's Vegas.
it's Vegas. It's what the city does.
Exactly. It's party all night, sleep for 2 hours and repeat. Like that's what it is. And it just in a sense of too, like that's also, as you mentioned, like putting it together kind of last minute. I think
Mhm.
that's where the manhole cover issues came into play too,
Which
because
was
there was 35 manhole covers that were on the track, because mind you, it is a city row, but
mhm,
they they didn't have them properly fastened down. And
yeah.
that's what ripped Carlos's car apart.
Which the fact that they tried to penalize him for that when it was their mistake for not making sure the track was set up properly, you just know that there's guys whose job it was in Baku and Monaco and elsewhere to make sure the tracks were safe, who were like, who did you hire? Who is this guy? Why have you done this?
Well, and traditionally they're welded. Like they should be either welded. Like I think at proper tracks they're
They're
welded
welded
down,
shut in Monaco, yeah.
and you can remove the welds if need be, right? Like that's not a problem. So, like again, for the extra money, just weld the things down. Like just weld them down. Isn't that it's common practice? So, I guess what they did instead of welding them down is that they removed the manhole cover and replaced it with like asphalt and like filled in the cover with asphalt. So they did that for like 3 to 4 hours after the free practice session, filled them all in. And I was like, what do we just call the city now to fill a pothole? And they, all of a sudden 35 manhole covers like, well, we need to go. That's like Pothole City. I'm like, this is such a stupid temporary way to fix this.
Which I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I feel like that also is just like, sure, I'm sure the asphalt is cheaper to put down than like hiring someone to weld shut that, but then the removal of it, I'm sure makes little to no sense in anyone's mind either. But I also sit there and they actually showed a photo of what the asphalt looked like covering the manhole cover, where I'm like, yeah, no duh, that destroyed the underside of this guy's car. I've gone over speed bumps that have less protrusion out of the ground in my car, and my car is like 1.5 feet off the ground, and this thing is like inches away.
It's like driving down like Spadina in the
Oh,
city.
it's like pothole city everywhere.
Oh yeah. It was
But
like
seriously,
it was just so pathetic to see. And even Dana made a great point on this too, where like I know they're in the desert, but what if it rained? There's no drainage and they would have been fucked.
they would have just had to eat their words and cancel the GP at that point. Like,
Which is nuts to think.
that's such a valid point too. Like, you're screwed if it rains. Because I'm sure they also covered with asphalt a lot of the like sewer grates and stuff too, right? Because you would also have to probably weld those down on a street circuit. That's insane.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Okay, so time for a little story. But I have a great aunt from North Carolina, and one of her quotes that has stuck with me throughout my life that she uses frequently is, "You can't fix stupid." And with some of the stuff we've seen go down this year and how I feel about this asphalt situation over the manhole covers and likely sewer grates is, I can sit here, we can all sit here, and the fans are going to scream about this as well. We're definitely not the only ones, but at the end of the day, you can't fix stupid, and stuff like this will continue to happen because common sense is not as common as we think it is. So, oh my god.
And so that was kind of the fix during the week that kind of fit. And then also, we talked about all the blocked off views, and I found it funny that people were just peeling back the film so that they could watch it on the stands. I'm like, you're not going to win that battle, right?
No.
So just let people do it. You're making so much money anyways that it's kind of, who cares? And also the paddock was built in a way where the exit of the pit lane was going into turn one, and I don't know how safe that is.
That is not. Oh, no. You're asking for a racing incident out of that. Someone's going to be accelerating coming out of the pit lane. Someone's decelerating going into a turn, then going to accelerate. It's almost kind of blind going into it a little bit too when you think about the pit wall and everything. Like, you have a very limited amount of time to react. That's so shocking that we didn't see anything happen there at some point, even with like safety cars and stuff.
Yeah, and you think that would have been like the case, but I think gotta have it from the manhole covers to the obstructed views that people pull down to the structurally unsound grandstands to everything. I think the cherry on top before it got good was when they did the drivers parade.
Oh my god.
Three of the classic cars broke down and oil leaked all on the left side of the track, or the inside part of the track to begin. So I was just kind of like, what else could go wrong before the race started? Because you could see there was just like that sand right at the start to try and to create grip, but also to get rid of the oil. It's just like, oh man, like what else can go wrong here?
It's one of those things where there are certain sports where the athletes are very superstitious and they have like little rituals they go through before every race. They're always on high alert. And like, were it not the case, I don't think that F1 is one of those things where some of the drivers are super superstitious, but if they were and I were one of those drivers, I'd be like, hell no, this is a sign. I am not meant to be a part of this race. The history books will not look favorably on me for participating.
It just goes from like bad to worse, right? At that point.
It just Like, I know it wasn't terrible and bad things didn't necessarily happen or anything like that, but geez, the more I learn, the more I'm like, it's a miracle that honestly everyone left with all their appendages intact and was able to live to see another day and race another week. Which also insane that we were in Vegas last week and we're in Abu Dhabi already a week later.
1 week after, right? And the time change, the flight, and think of all because it's the end of the season, right? And everybody is gonna have like end of the year sponsorship dinners, like events that they're gonna have to go to. Like this is gonna be a hell of a week for the drivers because they're gonna have so many, PR and marketing like events that they got to attend to.
You just know, because there were a few people who I feel like I recall seeing like basically immediately got on a plane after Vegas and were like, "That's it, I'm getting over there now to get ready." But there were a couple drivers who stuck around for some other events and stuff. Like I think Charles Leclerc was part of a like esports event night and other things, and I'm like, I hope you're just adjusting to the time zone while you're in Vegas right now, because honestly, like that would be so difficult to do, especially when they usually arrive on like a Wednesday and have to get acclimated right away.
So I think if we were to if we had to summarize the Las Vegas Grand Prix, if I had to summarize the Las Vegas Grand Prix into one picture, it would be the still face of Checo Perez as he was getting announced by Bruce Buffer. He was just kind of like his face was just there, like awkwardly smiling. Kind of like how the thing was like it was like a real awkward beginning part of the week, and then it turned out to be okay. But did you see that introduction?
I haven't. Checo.
So Bruce Buffer, legendary UFC in-ring announcer, right?
Yeah.
Does a lot of appearances now because he just of his the way he delivers his announcements. So they basically during the race they had Bruce Buffer announce all the drivers, and they did the one with Checo, and
His
going,
face. Oh my God.
Sergio Checo Perez, and like points right at him. And as he does it, Checo's like, he doesn't know what to do. He's like, do I go shake this guy's hand or, what do? So it just kind of gets caught in like an awkward position, and his face is like, I don't know what I'm doing here, sort of idea. It was awesome to see.
This is so funny. There's one still as he's announcing him where Checo's got this awkward little smile on his face. And then they show Buffer walking away, reading his card for the next one. And Checo's face is just like he looks so concerned with what just happened. Oh my God.
That's so good.
This is really funny. How did I not know about this?
Oh, it was awesome. It's kind of like that put the weekend into perspective there.
I'm watching it right now. Also, what a suit.
I know, right? That red, oh, it was beautiful. Typical Vegas suit, though. It was just, had the glitz and the glamour.
Just there we go. Yeah, looks at the camera and doesn't know what to do. Oh, poor Check. And then he's like, "Do I walk away? Do I what?"
Oh, it was so good.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
But
I'm crying. I'm laughing so hard.
Erica, it is unfortunately time. We're approaching the final race of the season.
It is. We're already, as we're recording this, FP1 and FP2 in Abu Dhabi have already wrapped up with a tidy little bow. Some surprising faces on the podium at the end of FP1 with Felipe Drugovich making an appearance.
And Danny Ricciardo.
Danny Ricciardo and George Russell, I think, took P1.
Yep.
Back to our normal antics in FP2 where we're seeing some more familiar faces up there, but there's already been a few instances of, some near collisions and accidents. A few people complaining about congested and slow pit lane movement. So I think hopefully we see some exciting racing and a little bit of drama here as well, but I'm not holding my breath.
F1 put out a post on Twitter, sorry, X, and it was a picture of the Yas Marina circuit, and it was like, where better than to finish the season? And I'm like, I could name about 20 different tracks that would be best to finish the season than Yas Marina.
The best was Matt Gallagher of like, what is it, FP1 podcast? I forget what the name of the podcast is now. just ratio to F1 so hard with
It was,
his reply.
it was awesome. Awesome.
He's like, fixed it for you with the new image.
Victor Lagos.
Ratio.
It was perfect. And it should be there to finish up.
I don't know why it's not. Like, it's just such a more entertaining circuit to watch.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to it and like historic in terms of like deciding winners before. I know part of it has to do with when in the season it is, but I don't know, just like of all the places to finish up, I get that there's definitely tons of sponsorship money coming in, and so that's definitely at play. But it's just been so funny to see like the number of people who responded with other tracks, and people got so excited about it.
But it's true, right? As we've all alluded to, cash is king in this sport, and that's where they're going to make the most money at the end of the day, sponsorship wise. People are going to go to UAE to go watch, the final race of the year, and that's where the parties are lit afterwards, right? Excited to see how that transpires. Sounds like everybody's going to be coming back next season, which I find quite interesting. Like, we haven't had any silly season for drama.
No silly season. Do we anticipate silly season in the off season?
I don't know. Like, because Checo has guaranteed his P2 spot now.
Yeah.
So he's done all that he's been asked to do to keep his seat. So I don't see him, leaving there. And the way that Stroll's been performing recently, he's gotten points in 3 of his last 4 races. 2 top 5 finishes back to back. He's kind of pulling up, and he has a chance. He has to finish P2, and Piastri has to finish out of the points for him to beat Oscar in the drivers' championship. So that won't happen. But the race for 4th is heating up, where we have Carlos and Sainz and Alonso both tied at 200 points. Norris tied 5 points back at 195, and then Charles at 188. So 4 through 7 separated by 12 points going into the final weekend.
Wow.
That's what I'm most excited to see is that battle. And if anyone's going to tune in, watch those 4 drivers this weekend.
That's going to be where to keep your eyes on, especially since we've also got the drama with Ferrari and Mercedes in the battle there, with 4 points separating those teams in the Constructors' Championship. So going to be really tight there as well. I think all eyes are going to be on Ferrari in that case, because if you've got a driver who's in the running for a better position and finalizing in the Drivers' Championship, and you're trying to get that nice little finish in the Constructors' Championship as well for P2, I think it is that they're battling for. You're gonna be wondering, is the curse of Ferrari going to hit, or are we going to just get by enough without a dramatic weekend in order to make this happen and to take home, kind of the prize money and everything that we're hoping to? So I definitely think I'm going to be tightly observing that go about it. But obviously, as a Lando fan, I'm hoping, and a McLaren fan, I'm hoping that things go well for both Piastri and Norris, so that they can kind of get the leg up on some of the others as well.
Yeah, and in Ferrari's case, I think you got to be really happy, considering considering the start wasn't all that incredible to the season. But in fairness, Fred Vasseur had a lot to deal with, right? Like, apparently from like some of the comments I heard this week, Binotto kind of left the team in shambles. Developing the car wrong time. He had an engine failure. He couldn't handle the Leclerc Vettel relationship. As we've mentioned before, he wasn't team principal material. And unfortunately, Fred had to rectify some issues that led, that kind of stemmed from his overall leadership. And they've done a great job turning around towards the end of the season to get to a point where they are challenging Mercedes for a P2 finish in the constructors.
Yep, I'd say the same goes for McLaren too, to even be in the point now where you have a driver who's battling for P4 in the championship. Like, I don't think, even by the time Baku rolled around, I was not anticipating that at all at the start of the season. And this is someone who like breathes papaya when it comes to this sport and will like yell at anyone else who says otherwise. But I'm really happy with kind of how things have gone. I mean, like, obviously not what you want because you're hoping that they take home the dub and the championship at the end of the day. But like from where we started to where we are now, I've seen a lot of progress in some of those teams that we're used to seeing a little bit more at the front of the grid who had very underwhelming starts. Because even Mercedes, we were like, what is going on over there?
Well, like just even take it back to when we had our first event at Trinity Common for Bahrain in March, and just how bad that car was.
Oh my
Like Lando
God.
had like 6 pit stops because of a hydraulic issue. Oscar
Piastri
just
was out. Like,
and it was just shambolic, right?
one of the Ferraris was out too. I forget if I think it was Leclerc had to retire as well. Like, oh my God, what a mess, truly.
No, it was. And to think that they only really had, I think, about like 20 points by the end of Canada,
Hmm.
like 8 races into the point now where they've been able to score 200, probably around 264 since Austria. Like that is just a huge turnaround. And they quicken the car, I think, by like 1.8 seconds or something like that. And it's not even the car that's fast. I have to commend the pit crew. They're unbelievable this year with the
World
tires.
record.
Oh,
World record for fastest pit stop, 1.8 seconds in the McLaren garage. And Piastri set a record for being the second rookie of all time to take home more than one fastest lap in it, or even a fastest lap in his rookie season. The last one to do it was Lewis Hamilton.
and just goes, you just like, yeah, I was just like, what the hell was Alpine thinking? Like, what are you doing having this guy on the bench for
Oh,
12
I
months?
know. Truly, like, because I was worried for a bit that he was regretting his decision because McLaren looked like a hot steaming pile of garbage for a while, but I think we can all agree this has worked out favorably for all the parties involved.
Except Alpine, who have become just an outright downtrodden mess. But
I have lived among the French for long enough to know that this is just kind of par for the course at times. So, les Français, je t'aime, mais c'est un vrai mess, honnêtement. So,
it's too bad they couldn't wave a white flag as well to go with
yeah.
it. But nevertheless, but I guess from a, as an Aston Martin fan, what was frustrating is that you see how Stroll's been performing the last 3-4 races, right? And you're like, man, if you had this form at the beginning of this season, P4 would have been all but locked up.
Yep.
For the constructors. And that would have been just a huge accomplishment altogether in itself, right? Maybe it could be even challenging for P3, right? In that case, against Ferrari, which again, not a lot of people thought that was going to be the case for Aston Martin coming into the season, but we thought, collectively, we decided that P4 was kind of like where, there was going to be. And they do have a shot. They got to score. They're 11 points back of McLaren going into this weekend, but it's going to be tough sledding just to even beat, I think, because of how much pressure Lando is. I feel like Lando versus Alonso is going to be a battle to watch, but Stroll's going to have to, shoot out another top 5 finish in order to really, I think, have a chance for Aston Martin to, beat McLaren this weekend. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm not optimistic. I also don't want it to happen because I want McLaren to stay ahead.
Fair enough.
We've had so many moments where we've been like, get ready for tennis season, buddy. And once your daddy leaves, you're on your own. But it's one of those things where you're like, you kind of, if it's something to do with the pressure, like he can probably feel the pressures on right now. And if that is what's pushing him to perform, it's like, dude, you are at the pinnacle of the sport. If you can't figure out how to apply that pressure to yourself to perform like this every weekend, you need a better sports psychologist. I don't know, or to get one if you don't have one, because that's really sort of inexcusable to me at this level of the game.
And I don't know how much of it is motivation based, or maybe since that incident where he shoved his trainer, he's kind of
True
flipped it, right? Maybe enough was enough. The coddling was done, right? You are a professional.
Mm-hmm.
Start showcasing it for your team, right? So I think that's kind of helped out. But yeah, I think personally, I think it'd be great to see Ferrari beat Mercedes on merit this weekend. That would be quite a result, I think, for Ferrari. Red Bull obviously setting records again. Max has a chance to overtake Vettel for them to be the third most winning racer in driver in F1 history. Gonna go win number 54 this weekend. Funny enough, since Michael Massey's departure, Erica, from the FIA, can you guess the win ratio between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen?
Oh man, like
33 to nothing. 33 to nothing. So Mercedes fans, you can't cry anymore about Michael Massey. You probably actually want him probably back.
I was gonna say, here's the one thing. We may have had our issues with Michael Massey, but the guy knew how to bring the drama. And honestly,
damn right
I kind of miss it.
So do I.
It was messy, but it was always entertaining.
Yeah,
and you can't say that it wasn't an exciting season when he was at the helm.
And the reason why I hate coming back here to Abu Dhabi is just like for this week, all we have to listen to is Lewis versus Max fans and just hearing about 2021 was stolen, blah blah blah. It's like, shut up! It is over and dealt with. Max has dominated since the test of time. So it's semantics at this point. And if Mercedes really wanted to step up, then they got to figure out their car.
Yeah.
To win in this new era.
In the infamous words of Christian Horner, then fix your fucking car.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently there were rumors. I don't know if you heard about the Lewis Hamilton rumors that have been kind of spicing around.
He has done his best to try to shut them down, but they are still a swirling.
Yeah, apparently he approached Red Bull and Ferrari this offseason for his contract extension because his contract was coming up as opportunities. But Lewis has then gone on the record, Sky Sports, saying that there was no way that he approached Red Bull. It was actually Christian who approached him. So this kind of he said battle right now going on is kind of livening up the last week of the season. It's the drama we needed going into the weekend. It
really is. We needed more than just the spectacle. We needed some drama and something to go on, some semblance of a potential silly season. And you know what? I, for one, am with all of the fans on the internet who did a wonderful job of creating a Microsoft Paint version of what they imagine Christian Horner's bedroom to look like, and it's covered with Lewis Hamilton gear. So I like to believe that's the route it's all gone and will continue to go. But it's so weird. Like I do know that obviously Lewis has made the jump to a new team before, but at this point with like the legacy he has with Mercedes, it's so hard to believe that while he's still such a solid performer, he would leave the team and go somewhere else unless they like it's not been a good couple seasons, but they haven't like really biffed it yet.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you play like F1 23 and you do like a career mode, right? And then you see like the driver changes that happen after a couple of years and Max is at like Mercedes and you're like,
what? It's one of those like Max in a Mercedes uniform can't hurt you memes when you start thinking about it.
When Max got asked the question by Crofty to make his comments on kind of like the speculation of this whole thing, Max was very quick to say, well, it's not happening, so why would I even talk about this sort of idea quick, right? I'm like kind of like, Max, are you a little nervous if Lewis was to be your teammate? Like, imagine that dynamic. I would pay good quality money to watch that happen.
It would be Nico v. Hamilton 2016 all over again. Because
and
those
just
are
pure animosity between the
two great drivers. You don't have a clear second seat, which these teams are known for having. It's not like a Haas or wherever where they're just like, go and deal. It would be wild. Like the glove throwing incident would be the smallest problem we have. I imagine it being full on like medieval Renaissance times. Like someone's gonna try to poison someone's gonna steal Max is gonna steal Roscoe and like ransom him for wins or something. Like we're gonna like, what is it? Lewis is gonna start hitting on Kelly Piquet. Like we're gonna
just like the utter drama would be just
I can script the entire DTS season right now.
I wouldn't even care about what happened to the other 9 teams. Like who cares what Aston Martin does next year? Who cares what McLaren does? I just want to see that. But
what else would happen? I picture like Yoss getting way more involved. Like, who is it? Like, Lewis's parents are like the nicest people who don't get involved in any of the drama, and Yoss is like hunting them down, and they're just like, who is this man who's following us around?
yeah, like it would be like Yoss versus I guess just as Anthony, but just a 12-round bout.
Yeah.
Sue
But you know
would.
what? I put my money on Anthony. I feel
Oh,
like that guy
100%. Yeah.
that guy would come out swinging.
Oh yeah. Well, so if they did that, what I would love. So I know like F1 has Drivers Survive. I don't know if you ever see on Prime, like Amazon Prime, they have the All or Nothing series, which they
No.
follow like a team around for the year and
Ooh.
showcase all the behind the scenes and everything. Like, so they've done like the Toronto Maple Leafs during COVID. They've done the Carolina Panthers. They did Michigan Wolverines football team one year. And it was kind of like they followed them for the year to do 10 episodes. And, you know, not only just the game, it's like, it's really a deep dive behind the scenes. If Max and Lewis would be on the same team,
Oh, they'd
Netflix
have
wouldn't need to do the exact same kind of philosophy and just give me 10 episodes, like along with DTS, just give me 10 episodes of just the behind the scenes of that.
and then have Andy Cohen host the reunion show.
Oh,
And that would be
it would be perfect.
oh my gosh. They'd have to go Real Housewives style with it. Like, give me all the trash reality drama that would stem out of that. That's what I need. That's what I want. And it's what the people want, and give the people what they want. So
People want
not
drama.
that
We need drama. Like these last 2 seasons have been filled. Like as much as I love watching Max's dominance, and I think in a way that we need to respect that, we need more drama in this. We need more drama.
if we're not getting the drama on the track, we need to get it off the track.
Well, I think for this, it's bad because, you know, for the sport to grow, it's now become a way where like the drama really creates the money, right?
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because it should be the racing that would want people to tune in. But the problem with greatness and seeing somebody, you know, win week after week is that people get bored.
Yes, exactly.
Or they don't
And when
appreciate
you're
it
owned
in
by
time.
a media company and stuff, it's a matter of time before they bring more of this
Yeah.
other stuff to the forefront.
So any final thoughts for the weekend you think coming up? We will be doing a year-end review, but what are your thoughts going into the race? Your final thoughts?
my thoughts going into the race, I am hoping Ferrari edges out Mercedes for P2. I want Norris to make up for the ground he missed in Vegas to hopefully nab some more points and finish a little higher in the Drivers' Championship. Same goes for Piastri. He was doing so well in the race in Vegas until kind of like the unfortunate little scuffle at the end. So I'm hopeful that he can put some pressure on some of the more experienced guys as well, because like honestly, impressive rookie season. And I'm hoping we have an exciting race where even if we're not going to see it at the front of the pack, we have some exciting bouts going for the folks who are vying for P4 in the Drivers' Championship and some good like mid-pack battles too.
Personally, I would love to see Alonso secure P4 in the Drivers' Championship because it would be a culmination of a season-long kind of growth for Aston Martin that would really put us into, I think, a good motivational frame of mind into next season. I would love Lance Stroll to finish in the points again this weekend, maybe top 5 finish, preferably get his confidence back. But I would also like to see Logan Sargent score at least 2 points this weekend so that he's not P21 in the 20 race. And I would also love to see Danny Rick score a ton of points for AlphaTauri being renamed Racing Bulls.
So bad.
Ugh.
So bad. Also, like, good luck to any commentators trying to say Red Bull Racing and Racing Bulls.
Go back to Toro Rosso. What was wrong with that?
So much better. So much better.
Anyways, semantics for next
I
episode.
digress.
But it would love to see Danny Rick score some good points just to get his confidence going into next season.
I would love that too. And I also agree with the Logan Sargent point. Would love for him. It would just be super exciting for Williams, get a couple more points. But for him to I actually think he's a pretty decent driver, and I think he kind of just deserves not to get the flack for being P21 in a 20 driver championship.
Because like the year that Mazepin finished P21, I get he was awful.
Sucked.
He was awful. At least Sargent can hold his own out there.
Yeah, exactly.
compete.
So, yeah, I agree with you. I'm hoping we get some good stuff out of this weekend and some fun stuff to talk about after the race. So,
Absolutely. Well, everybody, that was season 3, episode 31 of the F1 podcast. Erica, welcome freaking back. We love
Thanks.
having you on.
Great.
It's awesome.
I was in Winnipeg, and then I was in New Orleans, and also Sault Ste. Marie. One of those 3 was exciting to visit.
I mean, like who has a work schedule that puts you in those three different spots at within a 2-month period?
I mean,
work in the food industry, kids.
Hospitality, folks.
Yeah,
it's
hospitality,
a wild ride.
Food marketing all day. But
with that said, I'm bringing hospitality back to this podcast.
Exactly. That's great. Love having you back. Again, follow us on Instagram, TikTok now, and you can get us on at our podcast specials at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and XReachy YouTube. Signing off to see who is going to compete this weekend, see what's going to be down for P4, and you're going to see if Max can become the third most winning driver by himself in a matter of really 2 seasons of work. So that is the F1 podcast. Talk to everybody soon and have a wonderful day.